Hello to you. My name is Tash Mitch. I'm a life and business mentor, an energy alchemist, and a healer. And I've been having conversations with women globally about what it means to stand in our power as a woman, and not as a concept of it, but actually what it means in the cells and in the DNA to stand in our power. And also what it means to actually embody the highest frequency of what it means to be a woman, which is the language of the goddess to me. And so these conversations have just been opening up so much, and it's really an honor to sit before one of my closest friends. I feel like we've been on so many journeys together. So to sit opposite her and to have this conversation is a real honor. Tara Love Perry. I came to Tara Love Perry first through the interwebs and through the work that she was doing there. And she just shone so brightly in the work that she was doing. And then through journeying together in so many ways, in terms of healing, in terms of opening, in terms of expression. She's been a real sort of guide and a friend and a mentor and an inspiration in a lot of ways. And in this particular session, we're going to be talking about her work, I Love You Me, which is something that she's founded and something that she's branded herself. And it's so powerful in terms of allowing people to express an element of themselves that they probably wouldn't come to on a natural, everyday kind of way. And it's done so simply, but yet so beautifully and so elegantly. And we're going to be speaking of how powerful it is to speak to ourselves and to tone and to hear ourselves speak certain things out loud. So Tara, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, darling. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's always amazing. Whenever I connect with you, Tash, whatever we're doing together, it always blows my mind. It's always amazing. So I'm excited actually to be here.
Fabulous. So just talk us into a little bit about I Love You Me and your brand of I Love You Me, because this has been something that I feel you've been developing for a lifetime in a lot of ways.
Probably right.
So just talk us into that a bit, how you came to it and what it really means to you.
Okay, so how I came to it, like all the good things, is by accident. So I'm a soul reader, which means that naturally I read energy. It's something I've been able to do since I was little. And, growing up, it was very awkward and jerky and I didn't have control over it. And then as I kind of ended my late 20s and into my early 30s, I started just really doing readings with people one-on-one and being able to read their energy. And by energy, I mean mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, all across the board. So looking into the body or seeing the spirit. And, it's like it's peeking into the soul. I'm seeing their soul. And so when I'm doing the readings, I realized that there's a lot of light and a lot of harmony. And then there's a lot of shadow and a lot of disharmony and pain and suffering in the soul. And if there's one thing just reading and telling somebody what I could see to help give them a reflection, to help give them guidance. But it felt sort of a bit cruel that I could only tell them what the disharmony was and not be able to help them fix it, so to speak. So I was asking for guidance because I had a lot of struggles myself in just being in this human body and being on this earth, because there's so much pain, so much suffering. And so I was really guided. And at the time it happened, I didn't realize exactly what was guiding me. It was this energy that was just sitting on my shoulder in the form of a man with a big hooded, like a monk, the classic archetype of like Chiron or something, the healer with the big monk hood. And I couldn't see a face, but I really built a relationship with this energy, and it would show up all the time when I was doing readings, and I was getting guidance of all kinds of things. And this being sat with me for 2 years and was talking to me and telling me about the power of words and the sacred geometry of words, if we could see sound, what it looks like, and the resonance and the shape, and oh my goodness, I mean, magical things. And taught me the real meaning of certain key powerful words that have been two-dimensionalized So they're squashed flat. They're black and white rather than multi-dimensional and in their power, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so a couple of years later, it turns out this being was Archangel Michael. He revealed himself at one point. It was like, oh my goodness. And I had no idea about archangels. It wasn't something I'd fantasized about or, made up. So there's this being who's been teaching me for 2 years. And these words, they're so simple. And actually, they're known in another very ancient healing system called Ho'oponopono. I didn't know that at the time. I'm learning this, but the way that I'm doing it, I'm with my client, I'm speaking out loud, and I'm guiding them to say these words to themselves. It's because I'm getting guidance of what needs to happen for this soul to release its pain and to transform that energy from disharmonious and stuck and painful into something harmonious and fluid and more natural, as in resonance with their health and happiness, and so it was like transforming energy, and I was just getting the guidance, and over a number of years of using this, it just started to get its own structure and take its own shape. And then the 7 steps was born, the 7 steps to self-love that I call I Love You Me process.
And what I really love about your work is the actual saying, I love you me out loud, and I forgive you me out loud. And, thank you me out loud. That element of actually voicing that out loud, and how important it is for us to hear ourselves say things to ourselves. Not to appease anybody, not for the pleasure of anybody else, but for the vibrational intonation of something that happens within us that changes our frequency. That's what I feel like the work comes out with you, basically.
Well, you've said it there. It's the vibration, and everything in this universe comes down to vibration. It's energy resonating at a certain frequency, at a certain speed, if you like, that determines whether something is etheric or whether something is physical. But it's all energy. And with these words that we say, they're like, it's like having a witch or a wizard incanting a spell and saying it in their head. It doesn't work. You need the vibration in the manifest reality in this world, not just in the mind.
Yes.
And then it's much more powerful.
Yes.
And we know this when it comes to affirmations, and we say our affirmations out loud, or we chant our mantras out loud. We know how powerful that is. Right? And there's certain words we know that hold great power. I mean, depending on what religious practice you're doing, and we say these things in the church, and we sing the hymns, and all of that has this uplifting effect on people. And so words they're a vibrational key that can actually just unlock an energy and liberate it and transform it. Now the series of words that I use are deliberately put together for the effect that each one has, each stage that it does in the unlocking and the transforming of that energy. And to say it out loud, because you're also involving consciousness. It's not just a random thought that's floating through your head. You're stopping it for a moment. You're getting conscious of what it means. And then you become conscious when you say it out loud. You need that moment as well to let it drop in. Words have a sort of a weight to them, and it kind of drops in. And when somebody's heard you and felt you and connected with what you've said, when it's somebody external from you, when you're having a conversation. So you have that moment in yourself where you go, right, let me just breathe and let this drop in and have an effect. And then you can feel the difference. You can feel the effect that word has had. And then you do the next part, and then the next part, and the next part. And it has this incredible cleansing effect. It's really magical. I mean, I couldn't have put this together myself. It's really smart. It's so
and yet you could have. Yeah, and yet you could have.
I was just literally teaching 2 weekends ago. I was teaching a practitioner training, And I'm still blown away by it. And I've been doing this. I've been teaching it since 2008 and practicing it for way longer. And I'm still blown away by how clever it is when you really go into it. Yeah. So I love it.
Yeah. And it's actually amazing how that vibration then roots itself at the bottom of the feet, roots itself in the earth. Because I feel like when we are speaking things in our heads, there's a vibration that comes out of that. There's an expression that comes out of that. It's almost like if someone's quietly seething in a corner, or if someone has ill intent. I feel like we all feel it on some level, right? But as soon as they actually put it out there, as soon as it's vibrationally out in the world, the drop that you're talking about is a drop to the earth. It's kind of like, it's almost like when somebody says something and it just lingers in the room, but it lingers with such a weight. And it could be something amazingly fabulous that, you know, like when someone gives a speech or something like that, and basically you can hear a pin drop. And there's a silence, and then there's a kind of like potency that you can feel the emotion in the room. Or the other way, where somebody says something really horrible and it just drops in the room, and there's a pause, but it's a pregnant pause of a different kind. But there's a pause that basically you can feel this seeping into the earth underneath your feet, because you can actually feel it in your own feet. Do you know what I mean? That's a power that we're speaking about with a kind of expression element, isn't it?
It's stunning, isn't it? I mean, we use words constantly all day, every day. And are we really that mindful of what we're saying? Are we conscious of what we are speaking into existence? You know? Yeah. And at least, you know, if we're not conscious of it most of the time, that there can be a little practice that you use that is conscious, that is deliberate, that can have the cleaning up effect, I guess, of all the unconsciousness. You know?
I find just setting an intention to pay attention to what's coming out of your mouth, but also your inner dialogue. I mean, the inner dialogue is a massive one. So there are the words that we say, the words that we don't say as well, the words that we don't actually express out, that are like literally floating around in our blood. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like they have a certain kind of weight as well. And I feel like when we become aware of the dialogue and the tone and the texture that we're speaking to ourselves in, because I feel like as soon as we become aware of the internal textures, we then become aware of the external match of those textures, and we become aware of something that could easily be brushed off because our internal texture isn't really vibing with that. So for example, someone could say, you're a really stupid person. And I could be sitting here going, well, I feel really fucking smart right now. So like, it's not hooked onto anything. Do you know what I mean? It's not mirrored. It's not mirrored in here at that particular moment in any way whatsoever. Yet if my internal dialogue is along those lines where the
it's gonna stick.
It sticks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I feel like what actually is coming to us from the outside is just completely a mirror of what's inside, and to begin to notice the dialogue is really important, isn't it?
Oh God, I would say so. And the thing is, we have so much chaos and dross and a lot of very unpleasant things go through our heads. And even the sweetest, nicest person who speaks perfectly, it's all kind of, you know, it's in there. And it's programming. A lot of it is programming. A lot of it's stuff that we inherited because that's the way our parents thought, and we were in that thought vibration field, and those words were spoken or not spoken, but they're still in the air, right? And we absorb it like little sponges when we're babies and when we're small children. And adults might think that they've said things and it's above our heads so we can't hear it, but it's actually not true. And, you know, when I'm reading people and seeing this level of conditioning and then seeing those thoughts that are going on inside their head, even though consciously they're speaking nice positive words, and showing the world I'm a nice, positive person, there can be so much damage happening internally. And what I think is really important is that we don't lie to ourselves like that. Is that we would go in and go, right, hello me that thinks X, Y, Z. Hello me, hello thought that says this, this, and this. And actually go and address it and meet it, rather than constantly trying to cover it up and look nice about it. And it's not easy to do that. It means like turning around, almost like taking yourself out of yourself, turning around and facing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what this technique does, because it's not saying, I love myself. I forgive myself. It's I love you, me. It means, there's a relationship. There's a you and a me. It creates that sense of another, so that we have that mirror, so that we have that sounding board. We can start having a conversation with a part of ourselves and get to the bottom of something really quite quickly, especially when we're willing to be honest.
Yes.
And then it's like that you use the power of those words and you can transform it. But some people, this is the thing, I think, Tash, a lot of people are scared to say those bad words or negative things out loud. Some people obviously do it all the time and don't realise, because we're not that conscious. Generally speaking, as a race of people, we're not that conscious of our words at all. We're not conscious of what we're creating constantly. But also there's a lot of hidden, there's a lot of shadow, there's a lot of not wanting people to see what we're thinking.
Yeah.
But it's still having an effect, right? It's still affecting your life. It's still, people can still pick it up.
Yeah.
And so to be able to actually create a relationship with your own self, with your own thinking, your own mind, and do that releasing and actually speaking the negative things out loud in a way that is purposeful, that has a reason for doing so, and it's about bringing it into consciousness and transforming, not just amplifying it in a way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I feel like there's so much about the work that you do, so much about the work that I do is about coming to those conditions that we've taken on board as sponges when we were younger, and even today, the conditions from the conditioning from our parents, the conditioning from our society, from our community, the conditioning from our leaders, the conditioning from our teachers, the conditioning from
and the cultures,
authority figures. I mean, we basically have been sponges that have taken things in. And when we were younger, those, there was an element of survival. A baby has got very little survival skills. So it's kind of like looking around to see how to manage itself on this planet we call Earth, right? And so like literally it's kind of like taking in as much information.
Yeah, what do I do?
Yeah, like how do I maneuver myself here?
Yeah.
And all of this information that we're soaking in, very often, until we actually are almost forced to question it, or until we are in this place where we're open and we're questioning, then we don't actually start to sort of sift through, wait, hang on, I'm sort of like operating on a loop here.
It's normally when we're in a huge amount of pain that we suddenly grind to a halt and go, oh, okay, why am I in so much pain? It normally does take the life event that causes you devastation to make you go, okay, what needs to happen here?
Or it could be, that you're just an expansive person, so it's kind of like your thing is just about like, okay, so I've met my barriers, let's expand some more. Do you know what I mean? It could be that way, and I feel like we both have probably come to that point now in our lives. It feels like that anyway. But the point is like some of the things, some of your operational systems that you're working out of and the words that you're using are words that you were using when you were 3 or when you were 4 or when you were 5, that you haven't really sifted through, and you're still operating. The same words that you used then are the same words that are kicking about and looping about in your system now. And it's not until we actually face those words and then find a redesign for them so we could evolve ourselves into another phase of being. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, we're like little parrots, aren't we? We repeat what we hear around us.
Yes.
And it's a shift. And it's really interesting, Tash, because a lot of people find it really hard to start speaking out loud to themselves. And like you said in the beginning, it seems to be quite an unnatural thing to do. But you were just talking about childhood there, and actually children talk to themselves all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
They constantly do it.
Yeah.
And they don't even realise it's natural.
Yeah.
Because they're just in the moment, they're vocalising, they're not all wrapped up in here and worried about what people will think. And so I think one of the hardest things for adults to use this technique, and some of it is they're just so embarrassed because they feel like it's childish.
Well, it's that thing, like basically when you see somebody speaking to themselves and somebody says, "Oh, it's the first sign of madness."
You're crazy.
Like, do you know what I mean? You don't want to be considered.
I honestly think that you go completely nuts if you don't speak to yourself, because it's all getting wrapped up in here. And if you think about how many thoughts there are and how many neural pathways there are, and you think this thing and then that thing and then this thing and then that thing, and it's like spaghetti junction in there. It's often it's a complete mess. It's like often what I see, those old-fashioned telephone switchboards you see with the black and white movies and the operator, and she's putting the plug in there, and then wait a minute, let me put it in there, and it looks like that, but it's all bonkers, and everything's in the wrong place, and it's just like, this is often, obviously, not everybody's brain is wired up, but because of that conditioning, because this thing over here doesn't exactly match that thing, and A doesn't meet B, and 2 and 2 don't add up to 4, because life doesn't make sense. There's duality, there's the conditioning, there's so much stuff that's baffling. And it's like someone's put all the wires in the wrong place. And so actually just adding more words into that mess, it's like it's hard to get through. A conscious word in a big blob of subconscious spaghetti thinking is going to find it hard to penetrate. Does that make sense? Yes. So when we say it out loud, it penetrates deeper.
Yeah, and you become more and more comfortable, because I think part of certainly your work and part of what I've experienced in terms of toning out loud that way is that really to be massively changing, massively shifting, there's a level of conviction that needs to happen in the voice. I mean, we could sort of like be a bit sort of like this with it to begin with and be all embarrassed and be kind of, but as we go on and you become more confident and more planted and more your conviction is there, the power is so much more direct and attuned and aligned. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, it makes me think of the sacred geometry again then, because instead of it just being a black and white word that you read on a page and then you're moving on to the next thing, it's actually got multi-dimensional meaning to it.
Yes.
And words do.
Yes.
And I suppose we don't really realise that until we really start going into it and feeling, there's feelings for words. And one of the words we use in the system is I'm sorry. And sorry has such a bad connotation for most people because they were forced to say it as a child and they were punished if they didn't, and all kinds of things. What are you saying sorry for, And it can be so negative and so painful. And it's literally just got quite a black and white meaning. You are sorry if you're wrong and it's your fault. And actually, and there can be a lot of negative feeling because that's not the truth of the word. Do you know what I mean? It's going to feel bad because that is not the truth of it. It's your fault.
Yeah.
And actually, when you expand it out and you see the shape of sorry, and by sacred geometry, I don't know if I've got anything, I haven't got any sacred geometry handy to kind of illustrate and demonstrate, but just imagine a sphere or a cube or, whatever kind of shape. And within that, there's the multifacetedness of a meaning that together form one word. And it has room for feeling inside of it. It has room for emotion. Yeah. It's more expanded out. And, it's beautiful in that respect. And sorry is actually the most perfect way to articulate when we see something that is out of order, that's out of harmony, that's off the divine, it's not in alignment with our truth. And it causes disharmony. And it's actually like the most powerful key word to get into that disharmony and let you know, I have seen you, I have heard you, I'm present, I'm empathic with you, I feel you, I sense you, I'm fully present. And it's a full sensory, and that's where, when we start to embody as well, the more the sensory engagement with that, and realize, oh my goodness, I'm empathizing right now, and actually I'm feeling more deeper. It's like we're feeling into that word, and we're feeling into the effect of the word, and the whole thing opens out, and it's no longer that two-dimensional, flat, painful, it's all your fault. I'm laughing because it's not fun. It's not actually funny for people that are in pain. It's not funny at all, but it's funny that we just don't get it in that respect.
Yes, I hear you. Tara Love Perry, thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for
thank you.
Yeah, just this frequency and vibration that I always feel from you. And thank you for your work.
Tash, thank you for yours. Thank you for being in these conversations with women. It's stunning.
If you've enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to go a bit deeper, then check out the Goddess Immersion that's going to be happening on the 1st of January. It will take you into all aspects of yourself as a woman and as a goddess, and it's, I think, the perfect present to give yourself for the new year. Perfect expansion present to give yourself for the new year. I hope to see you there.